The man that quotes from the Little Red Book.
Well, hang on a second. I mean, the Labour leadership are old-fashioned pacifists. They don't believe in military action under any circumstances. My view is completely different. I do believe in military action if it's going to make a difference, if it's part of a long-term strategy, and if it's going to be effective. What the Prime Minister and Michael Fallon are saying, the Defence Secretary, is let's send another 3 jets. That's all we're talking about. And don't forget, this is the Conservative administration who've cut the RAF to the bone. Let's send another 3 jets and somehow drop a few bombs and that'll save civilization. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I've heard these arguments over repeated military interventions. If we want to take on ISIS militarily, we've got to do it seriously. We'll need significant ground troops to be provided by countries right across the Middle East and North Africa, and we'll need to fight them simultaneously in several countries at once.
OK, but if you heard that also British troops are going to be part of that coalition, would you be more minded to support it?
I don't think we need... We haven't got much of a British army left anyway. This is not about British troops on the ground. This is about the need for troops on the ground, but for those troops to be provided by countries like Iraq and Syria, not to mention Yemen, not to mention Nigeria, not to mention all the different... You know, the idea that ISIS is just in Syria...
Well, those troops are on the ground, and it's interesting you mentioned Syria then. So, I mean, you think, and a lot of other people are saying it as well, that in reality... the person there with not an intact army, but a fairly well-trained army and still well-armed, is President Assad, backed by President Putin. Do we let them do it?
Look, you know, 2 years ago, I was vehemently opposed to arming the rebels in Syria, which is what the government wanted to do. Thank goodness we didn't. Had we done that, we would have aided the growth of ISIS. Now here we are, saying we're going to bomb ISIS, but does that mean we're on the side of Assad or not? Or are we bombing Assad as well? I mean, what I'm saying is there is no clear long-term strategy to what the government is proposing.
Well, I mean, but what do you think about that? Let Assad do it, backed by Putin. Well, we don't get to shape what flows from
I have taken the view for some years, and I've received much vitriol from the political establishment for saying it, but whatever we think of Assad, whatever we think of Putin, and, you know, I would not be inviting them round to meet Mum this afternoon for tea, but whatever we think of them, on the biggest threat we face, namely global jihadism, we need to recognise we're actually on the same side.
And what do you think about that claim from the Prime Minister that there's 70,000 moderate troops there ready to fight?
So once again, we're picking good guys and bad guys in Syria. We got it horribly wrong last time. I'm not sure I believe the figure of 70,000, and it's a big mistake to pick between good guys and bad guys.
And let's talk about Russia, the incident with Turkey, and move it slightly. Well, let me ask you straight up, about migration, and we're just hearing that a deal is being done between the European Union and Turkey to try to deal with the migration crisis. You said, didn't you, before Paris happened, that terrorists may well use that route to get people into Europe. Do you feel vindicated?
Well, it's not about being vindicated.
Just in terms of the prediction.
Look, we have already, within London, Birmingham, Paris, Brussels, already we have cells within our cities of small groups of people who hate us and wish to destroy our way of life. What we should not be doing is adding to that by having an open door to limitless numbers of people who we do not have the ability to check. And what I was saying 6 months ago is that when ISIS themselves say they will use this route to flood Europe with their jihadist fighters, we ought to take them seriously. Now, what is even more worrying is this, that today in Brussels, the British government, all the other EU governments are meeting to discuss doing a deal with Turkey. This isn't just a deal to deal, with migration across the Mediterranean. What Merkel is proposing is we fast-track Turkey as members of the European Union. And what that will mean is 75 million people will have freedom of movement to come to the rest of Europe and to this country. And here's the warning. Here's the warning. A recent reputable poll showed that 8% of the Turkish population are ISIS sympathisers. We must be literally mad to be considering getting into a political union with Turkey.
We know.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.